Most Reverend Archbishop of Madras, Mylapore, Dr. George Anthony Sami, respected fellow felicitators, my dear friend Father John Alexander, Vice Provincial. I've known him for a long time, and I've seen him at Don Bosco, Egmore, where a new institution, new school was started after much discussion. I've met him at, it was in Elagiri Hills, and then in Tirupattur at the Sacred Hearts College, and I've met him on other occasions as well. He's a remarkable intellectual, somebody who has deep faith in Christianity and the Catholic values, but at the same time, very modern and progressive in his outlook. And it is a real pleasure to be able to participate in the launch of his 7th book. Very often when we have book launches, very few of those who speak and those in the audience have much of a clue about what the book is about. And that's a handicap. But on this occasion, I think most, if not all of us, have read the book or skimmed the book. I actually read all 152 pages. Are You Ready to Love? And Pathways to Life and Fullness. And alongside, I think it's a wonderful initiative that has been launched today, this Butterfly Express, the book donation campaign for rural students. And I'm sure if the idea is taken far and wide, the response will be very, very good, and it will also be appreciated. Of course, in giving books, people have to exercise some judgment, not donate books that they want to discard or they have little regard for, books of value. You can't guarantee that all books that come will be valuable, but that there must be a conscious attempt to give them good books. The book you want to keep, you should give. That's very much part of what Father John is talking about sharing, about being generous, and so on. The book you love most, maybe a first edition of something, that's the book that is most valuable. And I hope some of the donations will be extremely valuable books of high quality. The focus of this event, the book launch, like my friend and colleague Sashi Kumar, I too would not describe myself as a religious person, to put it mildly. I'm a non-believer. Let me lay it out at the outset. But I have great regard for men and women of religion who work for the common good, who work to unite people in the values that our Constitution proclaims. In the preamble, everybody has seen it at some point or another, but very few of us take it to heart. Justice, social, economic and political, the liberty of thought, of expression, of belief, of faith, of worship, equality of status and opportunity, and perhaps most important at this point of time in our political history and given our highly contested socio-political milieu, fraternity. And that fraternity contains the value of love. Love, of course, goes beyond that, but fraternity is based on the idea of respect, of equality, but also solidarity and love. So I think this book addresses it. Of course, the values are, as the Archbishop pointed out, not just human values, but values, gospel values, and so on. I can understand it. I went to a succession of Christian institutions, starting with Church Park for some weeks, Rosary Matriculation School. It used to admit boys up to the 4th class. in those days, then Madras Christian College High School, then Loyola College, and so on. These are a succession, and I have the greatest regard and respect and admiration for Christian missionaries of various denominations, in this case mostly Catholic in my case, who have dedicated their lives and everything to educating young people. There are many fine ideas in this book. I just want to list one or two without going into them in detail because we can't take too much time on it. The idea of solitude, he calls it the music of silence, discovering the divine in solitude. It's very important. What is solitude? And practicing it to find peace of mind and so on. The self-discipline required to do this. I think most of us can relate to it. We need, in this frenetic world, the world of frenetic activity, we need to find spaces where we can practice in a systematic way solitude. And then courage beyond fear, conquering fear. There's a lovely story, perhaps quite well known, about Nelson Mandela and his bodyguard taking a flight. They encountered a violent storm. Everybody was scared. Nelson Mandela didn't show any fear, but later on he revealed that he was as terrified as anyone else. But since he had to lead, in his leadership role, he could not afford to show fear. He had to reassure people. So the point being that fear is natural. Everybody fears something, but you can conquer it through a process. He talks about bad habits and how to overcome them. And the other interesting point is quoting Pope Francis, whom we all admire, not just for his humility, but his ability to empathize with people well beyond the Christian fold. But a very interesting statement he made is that you cannot cultivate humility without going through humiliations. So when Father Alexander was sitting there and refused to bring his chair up, I was joking to him, that's humiliation. Here you show the humility. But Pope Francis, a Jesuit, certainly went through humiliations in his time. He was attacked at one point of time, but he overcame that and became one of the most beloved religious leaders in the world today. A lot of us admire him for his humble ways, his simplicity. I remember before he was elected as Pope, he was a cardinal, he checked in at a hotel, and after he was elected, before he showed up on the balcony, he went out and paid his bills himself and came out. And I believe he doesn't live in the papal palace. That is humility, but from his own experience, I suppose, he said, without being humiliated and living through that and finding a way forward, you cannot practice humility. And again, Father John Alexander is very widely read. And the quotations are not just the usual thing people start chapters with, because you could pick it up from any book of quotations, but he's actually found meaningful quotations, meaningful examples you can relate to. There are several other things in the book, and we can discuss them elsewhere or later, but it's a very fine offering, and even for somebody who's not of a religious dispensation, religious orientation, I think there's a great deal to learn from and appreciate in the book. I would also say it's a very well-written book. I've done a lot of proofing in my time. Usually it goes to the mistake first and then the word. Goes straight to the mistake. So far, I couldn't find any proof devils in the book. I hope to find at least 5, which is standard in a book. But it's a very well-written book, so he's taken the trouble to edit it, revise it, and it's very, very accessible. So I'm delighted to be part of this event, and I convey my respects to the Most Reverend Archbishop.